We are recording.
We get an adorable chapter.
Girls' Day Out.
It is a girl's day out, and I am here for it, just like Spook is.
Oh, yeah. As much as he tries to act like he's not that interested, he's like, oh, wait a second. This is interesting. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've made the comparison of Elend good, Zane evil. Zane is essentially Bizarro Elend in the past, I believe, yeah?
Yes, you've done so.
Is Alrion good Vin? Is Alrion Valette?
Yeah, that's a good characterization. It's an interesting way to put it. I think Valette's a little... Alrion is... You know what? It fits. I was going to say, like, Valette is smarter than Alrion, but Alrion is actually very perceptive.
Intuitive.
Yes, she doesn't... Just because she's not, like, wordy or, articulate in a certain way, it's just she's perceptive in that way. She instinctually, she picks up on things. So it's like, it is a bizarro kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and I like this mirroring of Zane and Elend, Vin and Alrion. I think
you would assign that comparison as an essay topic. I feel like you'd be like, explore.
Indeed. Yeah. Also, no way Alrion is a spy for Set after this chapter. I am totally won over by her, especially with Tindell's blessing.
Oh, okay. Look, I don't know. I'm easily taken for a fool. So so I don't trust nobody, man. But I'll I want to trust her too. I feel like there is just an earnest goodness there. So I'm with you, but I'll trust her. I'll trust her because you said so. Okay.
Oh man! So when she's not trustworthy, you're gonna blame me?
Yes.
No, that's fine. I had sort of a cruel thought this week, which I don't like. I don't like to think cruel things, especially about one of my favorite characters.
Uh-oh.
Do you remember that scene in Game of Thrones with Balon Greyjoy? And he is sent Theon's appendage.
Mm-hmm.
And Balon looks at his daughter and says, he's not a man anymore. Remember that?
Yeah.
So, do you remember the prophecy that says the hero of ages shall be not a man but a force?
Yes. Uh-oh.
I'm kind of feeling Sazed as the hero of ages of late, and that thought crossed into my mind. Now, there's a whole philosophical topic to be thought regarding one's manhood or one's femininity as it is connected to their ability to create progeny, which we'll get into in a moment, which is why I brought this thought up.
I don't
Thank you. I don't particularly want to get into that philosophical thought here on this channel. Maybe we'll do it on your channel for a think one day.
Yeah. What is a man?
What is a man? Is one's ability to have children. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's part of, as much, whether it's right or wrong, it's part of a perception. The same way that being able to bear children is something that makes you a woman in most people's eyes. That's something that men also, like when it comes to a couple trying to conceive, there's those deep feelings that then happen when say it's not working. A man will feel a certain way and question himself. Women will also question themselves. It's just this common thing that happens. So I guess how we apply that to Sazed is you can still be the hero of ages, and you can still have progeny in a different kind of way, in a prophecy kind of way.
Right. So the prophecy, again, you get that it fits if you can conceive of it in that way, kind of a thing. So
Yeah, because metaphor.
uh,
Haha.
yeah, and for what it's worth, I think Sazed is a very masculine figure. He is a rock, a fount of wisdom, and a source of comfort for those around him. And I think that is, and a source of safety. I think that's very masculine in the healthiest ways.
Yes. Not toxic at all.
Yeah. So I don't want anyone here thinking that I have indicated that Sazed is not a man. But we deal in books where these topics have come up, and the thought came into mind. And yes, the reason I brought this all up was the fact that we had spoken in the past about whether or not Alendi had children, and that's the bloodline genetic allomancy element at play. But in this particular chapisode, well, it's in the epigraph, so let's do the intro and then we'll just get straight into it, yeah?
Okay.
Great. Oh, by the way, Kite promised to do this intro as Straff Venture. Since we're talking about manly men and masculinity. Great offer, Kite.
Oh, great. Yeah, great. And he's the absolute pinnacle of masculine youth. I'll try my best.
Hello, and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. For this particular series, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, that Don Kite.
Dorkus and I are both going into the story completely new, with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment, we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experience along the way.
Hold on to your butts, because this is Ascension Unleashed, a blind read-through, and today we will be covering Chapter 25.
Chapter 25! He fathered no children, yet all of the land became his progeny. So there's that answer to the question we asked, I think, last chapisode.
Whether he had any children.
Yeah.
But this is past tense. We're talking about Alendi. We're talking about who we thought was the hero of ages, which is still it's important for us to think about that, because it gives us the idea of what the prophecy was talking about, because we still don't know the exact prophecy.
No.
But so I guess we are naturally falling into, how do we apply this to our current set of candidates?
Yeah, especially since we aren't getting the information that we want out of these epigraphs.
Yeah, they've been even worse, if we want to say worse, than the first book in terms of their revelations. It's just like, hey, by the way, here's a little thing, here's a thought, here's that. Quan, man.
And I feel like once we have the whole picture, we will understand the importance of these epigraphs. Yes. But for the moment, it's like, oh my God, just tell me what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, but also considering, the epigraphs, they aren't just arbitrary in terms of, we do seem to find some sort of connection a lot of the time. We've got he fathered no children, yet all of the land became his progeny. In this chapter, we do have Vin, as much as we are both kind of like, yeah, it can't be Vin. But Vin does do this thing of, I suppose, being the mother of the people by having this sort of leadership. This is the format that Alendi used. That's how the people were his progeny, in that he led them, right? So
yeah,
here we have Vin
she
practicing
acts
that.
As the heir.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. That's what we can connect to the epigraph. But yeah, of course, all male. Yeah. How dare they? Anyway.
Vin was a very light sleeper, a heritage from her youth. Thieving crews worked together out of necessity, and any man who couldn't guard his own possessions was considered to be unworthy of them. Vin, of course, had been at the very bottom of the hierarchy, and while she never had many possessions to protect, being a young girl in a primarily male environment gave her other reasons to be a light sleeper. A reminder that this is a dark world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for that. We didn't need a visceral description or anything, But nice subtle reminder there that, yeah, Vin had to be scared for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. So it was that when she awoke to a quiet bark of warning, she reacted without thinking. She tossed off her covers, reaching immediately for the vial on her bedstand. She didn't sleep with metals inside her. Many of the allomantic metals were poisonous to some small extent. It was unavoidable that she'd have to deal with some of that danger, but she had been warned to burn away excess metals at the end of each day. She downed this vial even as she reached for the obsidian daggers hidden beneath her pillow. The door to her sleeping chamber swung open, and Tindell walked in. The terrace woman froze in mid-step as she saw Vin crouching on the bed's footboard, a few feet away, twin daggers glistening, body tense. Now this excited me. I was like, yes, we're finally going to get the Vindwell.
How did I not see that coming? Yes, the Vindwell. That's great. Yeah.
Thank you. And more of that crazy possum energy as she sits at the foot of her bed, crouched with her daggers.
Yeah. Well, possum would be, she plays dead, but I know what you mean. Crazy defense mechanism thing. Yeah. It really was very cool. Very cinematic as well, because you kind of imagine the music swelling and everything to show that she's ready for this crazy moment in this Tindell. Which, you know what, you can't face Tindell with daggers. It's you got to go with wits. So
yeah, Tindell raised an eyebrow.
So you are awake now?
The terrace woman smiled.
What are you doing in my rooms? I came to wake you. I thought we might go shopping. Shopping? Yes, dear.
Tindell said, walking over to pull open the curtains. It was far earlier in the day than Vin usually rose.
From what I hear, you're going to meet His Majesty's father on the morrow. You'll want a suitable dress for the occasion, I assume? I don't wear dresses anymore. What is your game?
Tindell turned, eyeing Vin.
You sleep in your clothing?
Vin nodded. I like that she does that. It's endearing.
It's Vindeering. Sorry. I needed to do one of my own. I'm sure we've
and
used
it was an excellent
before.
one. I don't think we've used that one before.
How have we not used it before? It's so obvious. Wow. You don't keep any ladies in waiting?
Vin shook her head.
Very well then.
Tindell said, turning to walk from the room.
Bathe and change. We'll leave when you are ready. I don't take commands from you.
Tindell lingered by the door, turning, then her face softened.
I know you don't, child. You may come with me if you wish. The choice is yours. However, do you really want to meet with Straff Venture in trousers and a shirt?
Vin hesitated.
At least come browse. It will help take your mind off things.
Finally, Vin nodded. Tindell smiled again, then left. Vin glanced at Orsor, who sat beside her bed.
Thanks for the warning.
The Khandra shrugged.
Oh, shruggy dog.
Aw.
Yeah.
At this point, I knew this was going to be a slice of life anime episode, and I was very excited for it.
Let's go. Yeah, well, we needed the Vindwell, like you said. So it's not just going to be in a room where they have a conversation. It's going to be a whole experience. It's going to be an excursion.
Yeah. And I think you can definitely tell that Tindwell's tactics with Vin are going to be very, very different than her tactics with Elend.
Yeah, immediately. It's kind of like, even just from my point of view, I'm like, how do I even make Tindell kind? I don't know how to do that, to make her soft.
I'm getting matronly aunt vibes from her when she's nice.
Yeah, and she says dear. Like, when I first read it as well, I was like, then the use of the word dear is, wow, okay, it works. So you can see already we've got this. Look, we don't have the exact conversation yet, which I like that Vin is like, no, why are you being nice to me? Which is very Vin. But we already see her angle, even though Vin's like, what is your game? But like, we can see her angle already. It's just like, I'm going to be nice to you, Vin. And I really love her reasoning, which we'll get into later.
Yeah, and the fact that she can do this is noteworthy because I think back to Sazed's interaction with Tindell and how he thinks that most people see in her this harsh, stern person, but he doesn't see her that way. So I think we also get a little bit of a glimpse into the Tindell that Sazed sees, and it's nice to know that it is genuinely there too.
Yeah, she's somewhat, I don't know, I don't know who would, but someone might say, oh, it's manipulative. I don't like that a person can be such a chameleon, where they just change the way that they act from one person to the next. It's just, no, it's actually, I don't see that as manipulation. It's actually being sensitive to others' needs.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll talk about it when we get there, but I do think that Tindell likes these people and believes in them and does earnestly want to help them.
Yeah.
Once Vin wouldn't have been able to imagine living in a place like Keep Venture. The young Vin had been accustomed to hidden lairs, ska hovels, and the occasional alley. Now she lived in a building bedecked with stained glass, bounded by mighty walls and grand archways.
Of course, many things have happened that I didn't expect. Why think about them now?
Her youth and the thieving cruise had been much on her mind of late, and Zane's comments, ridiculous though they were, itched at her. Did Vin belong in a place like this keep? She had a great many skills, but few of them were beautiful hallway types of skills. They were more ash-stained alleyway types. She sighed, Orasor at her side as she made her way to the southern entry where Tindell said she'd be waiting. The hallway here grew wide and grand and opened directly into the courtyard. There was a roofed coach portico where carriages came right up to the entryway to drop off and pick up their occupants. That way, the nobleman wouldn't be exposed to the elements. As she approached, her tin let her hear voices. One was Tindell. The other?
I didn't bring much,
Alrion said.
A couple 100 boxings, but I do so need something to wear. I can't survive on borrowed gowns forever.
And now I know it's not just the Vindwell of it.
Yes, it is. It's the Valrian. Vinrian. Okay, so either way, I love, what, guys, it was such a clever choice for us to make the comparison with Alrian and Valette, and Alrian also has a southern accent. It was totally on purpose.
Yes, let's retroactively say that was on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was instinctual. And I think Alrion is a wonderful vehicle for Vin to explore her more feminine side, if that is a thing that she would like to do.
Yeah. She seems to... I just love the journey that she goes on in this chapter, because she's cut off this part of her as if it's not allowed, she's not worthy of it. And she's gently being brought back into it. And this actually might be part of her. I love the way Tindell helps her through this.
Yeah. Vin stopped as she turned into the last part of the hallway.
The king's gift will surely be enough to pay for a dress, dear,
Tindell said, noticing Vin.
Ah, yes she is.
A sullen-looking spook stood with the two women. He had on his palace guard's uniform, though he wore the jacket undone and the trousers loose. Vin walked forward slowly.
I wasn't expecting company. Young Ariane was trained as a courtly noblewoman. She will know the current fashions, and she will be able to advise you on your purchases. And Spook?
Tindell turned, eyeing the boy.
Pac-Man.
There is tremendous humor in the terrace woman calling the gangly boy a Pac-Man, right?
Yes, beautiful. It's funny. Not beautiful as in like, haha, retribution or whatever. It's funny because also like Tindell essentially could use strength and carry everything. So could Vin and whatever. But no, we are going about things normally. Okay, we just need men to handle the package.
Well, that's a trope, isn't it? The put-out husband or the boyfriend going along on the girls' day, and he's just, sitting in the Macy's couch, carrying all of the purses and bags and stuff.
and just doing the, yes, that looks great. Like the usual. Yeah, exactly. Well, that explains his mood.
Vin thought.
Come.
Tindell said, walking toward the courtyard. Alrion followed quickly, walking with a light, graceful step. Vin glanced at Spook, who shrugged, and they followed as well.
How did you get pulled into this?
Was up too early sneaking food, Spook grumbled. Miss Imposing there noticed me, smiled like a wolfhound, and said, "We'll be needing your services this afternoon, young man."
That was great. I love that.
Thank you. And just the way he says it is so funny, too.
Yeah, no, but
Misimposing, smiled like a wolfhound.
He's got this thing of giving everybody names like Uncle Grumpy and whatever. So having
he's
him
trying
do
to
that.
be like Kelsier.
Oh, is he? Yeah, I suppose.
He's even dressing like Kelsier with the casual stuff.
Listen, you give him a manly voice. It's good because remember he was boyish before. Now he's a man. So.
Oh, I was just trying to whisper.
Oh, okay. But I still enjoy Spook, and we will also realize it is Spook.
Yay! Vin nodded.
Stay alert and keep your tin burning. Remember, we're at war.
Spook obediently did what she said. Standing close to him as she was, Vin easily picked up and identified his tin's allomantic pulses, meaning he wasn't the spy.
Woo! Sorry.
Excellent.
Yeah,
we've got one off the list.
Well, that's what she's going to think, and she'll have the thought in that way. No, I'm kidding.
Oh yeah.
She says another one off the list.
I totally forgot.
Another one off the list. At least this trip won't be a total waste.
A coach waited for them by the front keep gates. Spook climbed up beside the coachman, and the women piled into the back. Vin sat down inside, and Orasur climbed in and took the seat next to her. Alrion and Tindell sat across from her, and Alrion eyed Orasur with a frown, wrinkling her nose.
Does the animal have to sit on the seats with us? Yes,
Vin said as the carriage started moving, and already I'm loving the dynamic between Alrion and Vin with her curtness.
Yeah, she's not giving her any more words than necessary.
Alrion obviously expected more of an explanation, but Vin didn't give one. Finally, Alrion turned to look out the window.
Are you sure we'll be safe traveling with only one manservant, Tindell?
Tindell eyed Vin.
Oh, I think we'll be all right. Oh, that's right,
Alrion said, looking back at Vin.
You're an allomancer. Are the things they say true? What things? Well, they say you killed the Lord Ruler for one, and that you're kind of, well, just a bit rickety. Rickety.
I love that word.
Listen, I understand Vin's reaction when somebody says rickety. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's you want that on your resume. Okay.
Anyway, rickety?
Rickety? And dangerous. But, well, that can't be true. I mean, you're going shopping with us, right? Is she trying to provoke me on purpose? Do you always wear clothing like that?
Vin was in her standard gray trousers and tan shirt.
It's easy to fight in. Yes, but, well, I guess that's why we're here today, right, Tindell? Yes, dear.
Tindell said. She'd been studying Vin through the entire conversation.
Like what you see? What is it you want? You have to be the strangest nobleman I've ever met. Did you grow up far from court? I did, but my mother was quite certain to train me well. Of course, she was trying to make me into a good catch so father could auction me off to make an alliance.
Alrion smiled. It had been a while since Vin had been forced to deal with women like her. She remembered hours spent at court, smiling, pretending to be Valette Renault. Often when she thought of those days, she remembered the bad things, the spite she'd faced from court members, her own lack of comfort in the role. See, and here's Brandon Sanderson very clearly pointing out the parallels between Alrion and Valette and Vin, with Valette being that country bumpkin who had never been to court, to Luthadel, and who was coming, presumably, to help Lord Renault facilitate an alliance.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Which is essentially what Alrion was sort of set up to do. She didn't quite get as far as getting to Luthadel, but all the same.
Yeah, that's her breeding. It really works. The connections are, the purpose of the connection, the purpose of the comparison is to get Vin, well, us thinking about Vin and Vin thinking about who she is, how much of her is Alrianish and Valetish, how much of Valette was Vin. And we did have actually quite a lot of her enjoying being Valette. But now it's kind of like that experience has been darkened. She's only thinking about those things she didn't like about the experience. And then later on in this chapter, she does start remembering the things she enjoyed about being Valette.
But there had also been good things. Elend was one. She would never have met him if she hadn't been pretending to be a noblewoman. And the balls, with their colors, their music, their gowns, had held a certain transfixing charm. The graceful dancing, the careful interactions, the perfectly decorated rooms.
Those things are gone now. We don't have time for silly balls and gatherings, not when the dominance is on the verge of collapse.
I mean, she's not wrong.
She's not wrong.
I did say earlier in this series that they should have thrown a ball to try and simulate some degree of normalcy. Obviously, you can't do that in a siege when food is limited, but they really should, I think, at some point, if they survive this, bring back the balls.
Yeah. Look, but
I mean, heard that.
Yeah, well, but just socially, it would also, because now those balls were a different thing in the previous empire, right? They were places where young kids could be killed because they were in the wrong place. Okay, you could use a celebration to bring in the new social order where Scar and noble people can both enjoy these sort of things without the violence. That makes it tricky. Yeah, I understand Vin saying we don't have time for that, but she doesn't need to deny herself the enjoyment of those things in her mind even. So like she thinks about the good things, okay? And then she goes, no, we don't have time for that anymore. It's like, yeah, but you can still be grateful for those things and you can still accept that you like them. It's okay. You don't have to get rid of that part of yourself. Maybe because it's painful to not have that anymore, you just go, oh, I don't need it. I think that could be a defense mechanism that you just think, no, I didn't like it in the first place. It's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't need it in the first place.
Tindell was still watching her.
Well, what? Did you grow up far from court? I'm not noble, Ariane. I'm Scar.
Alrion paled, then flushed, then raised her fingers to her lips.
Oh, you poor thing!
Vin's augmented ears heard something beside her, a light chuckling from Orasur, soft enough that only an Alamancer could have heard him. So that seems to me to be a very genuine response from Alrion, hence Orasur's chuckling, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like he's just like, oh, she doesn't even realize how she comes off saying that, but yeah, he's just enjoying it.
She resisted the urge to shoot the Khandra a flat look.
It wasn't so bad. So also just a note on Orasur in general at this point, Dogasur, whoever he is. We've gotten him giving us a warning this morning. Remember their relationship was he has to tell her she has to tell him specifically each command, otherwise it's not happening. But this relationship's deepening. He actually cares about her. He gave the warning and then she says thank you for the warning as well, and he just shrugs. We've kept on with that relationship building going on, and then this flat look that would have passed between them. It's just the chuckle that has happened, and I love that Vin had to stop herself from looking at the dog funny, which the comedic sense is great.
Agreed.
But well, no wonder you don't know how to dress. I know how to dress. I even own a few gowns. Not that I've put one on in months.
Alrion nodded, though she obviously didn't believe Vin's comment. Loved that line. And I just
Yeah.
imagine it's this like slow kind of smile, polite,
Oh, yeah, it's just a small.
unblinking.
It's yeah, it's great, but it's you know what? I'm just trying to be nice. It would be unnecessary for me to say, "Oh, please." Like I'm just saying. I'm saying I believe you. And I'm not very good at hiding that I don't believe you. I like it. It's genuine. It's a genuine lie. I love it. Breezy is Scar too, or half Scar. He told me. Good thing he didn't tell Father. Father was never very nice to Scar.
So on one hand, it seems like a big deal that he would tell her he's half Ska.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, since the fall of the Lord Ruler, one would imagine that a citizen of Ellen's kingdom wouldn't mind proclaiming that with pride. But obviously he was undercover when dealing with Set, so still telling her seems like a big deal to me.
Yeah, it shows that there is actually some sort of relationship between them, because it's not like he would go about and make sure that everybody knows that. That's not what he would be talking about. It's not what he would be focused on. So it shows that there's maybe some sort of intimacy, and I'm saying intimacy in just the bland terms, but we are of the opinion that it became physical. But there is some sort of closeness in that he told her, and she kept his secret as well. That's another thing.
As far as we're aware.
Yeah, because she said, "Oh,
Seems
thank
like
goodness."
it, though.
Yeah, as far like he might have found out or whatever, but she didn't tell her dad. She's like, "Oh no," and Father wasn't nice to Scar, and I agree with you, Dorkus. She's good, okay? Alrion is good.
I think so.
Yeah.
Vin didn't reply. Eventually, they reached Kenton Street, and the crowds made the carriage a hindrance. Vin climbed out first, Orasur hopping down to the cobblestones beside her. Vin eyed the bustling crowds. The market street was busy, though not as packed as it had been the last time she'd visited. People were obviously trying to go about their daily activities, despite the threat from outside. What else could they do? The siege had already lasted for weeks. Life had to go on. Vin glanced over the prices at some nearby shops as the others exited the coach.
5 boxings for a bin of aging apples,
she thought with dissatisfaction.
Food is already going at a premium.
Elend had stores, fortunately, but how long would they last in the face of the siege? Not through the approaching winter, certainly. Not with so much of the dominance's grain still unharvested in the outer plantations. Valid concerns, but with the looming Kolos, I kind of get the sense that this is not going to be a siege that lasts very long, one way or the other.
Yeah, one way or the other. It is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, but yeah, it's not going to be an extended years thing. It'll be sorted somehow for some side soon.
Yeah.
Time may be our friend now, but it will turn on us eventually.
They had to get those armies to fight each other. Otherwise, the city's people could die of starvation before the soldiers even tried to take the walls. Spook hopped down from the carriage, joining them as Tindell surveyed the street.
Okay, so you've got lines.
I've got lines.
I've got Vin-eyed, the bustling crowds, the people were obviously trying to go about their daily activities. Okay, you had that paragraph quite a while back.
Mm-hmm. Yes?
Yeah, life had to go on. That whole thing, that came way later in my book. They just moved it about.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so, but I assume the next line is there, but Tindell.
Correct, is what I have. Mm-hmm. I mean, there, not the word. Correct. Mm-hmm. Go on.
There,
Tindell said, pointing to a dressmaker's shop. Alrion scampered forward. Tindell followed, walking with modest decorum.
Eager young thing, isn't she?
Vin shrugged. The blonde woman had already gotten Spook's attention. He was following her with a lively step. Of course, it wasn't hard to get Spook's attention. You merely had to have breasts and smell nice, and the second was sometimes optional. Vin, why are you thinking such mean things of Spook?
She doesn't find it mean. She just thinks, it's just him. He likes girls. Woo. So she thinks that's just a normal way. I think she's just in a bad mood.
That's fair. I will chalk it up to bad mood. I mean, yes, Spook is young, but
No, and she's also annoyed with the difference between her and Alrian. So it's like it's a little bit of jealousy because it's like, oh, he's paying attention to her. He's supposed to have a crush on me. Doesn't matter that I doesn't matter that I don't want his attention. It's just now the attention's gone to someone else, and that's annoying because Alrian is irritating her at this point. So it all works in that vein.
That's fair. Tindell smiled.
She probably hasn't had an opportunity to go shopping since she left with her father's army weeks ago. You sound like you think she went through some awful ordeal just because she couldn't go shopping. She obviously enjoys it. Surely you can understand being taken from that which you love.
I liked that line. And a little bit of chastisement, but gentle chastisement.
Yeah, just rethink that, Vin. She's just reacting. Vin's just having these reactionary thoughts, not really deep things. And Tindall's just making her question her initial reactions. Like it.
Yeah. And I suppose she hasn't had much cause to practice empathy before now. Like she has learned about trust. She has learned about love and friendship and all of that. But I don't think there was anything in the first book about her feeling empathy. Was there?
She uses empathy the way a person who's a victim of abuse uses empathy, where they use it to figure out what another person's expectations are, and therefore they will cater to that person's needs. She's not used it in a way to smooth over confrontations and things like that. She's not used it for the benefit of others.
Right. I mean, she certainly hasn't felt empathy for Spook. He's given her an annoyingly large amount of opportunities to exhibit some empathy for him.
Yeah.
She doesn't seem to concern herself too much with Dachshund's woes or Breeze's woes. In fact, she was downright aggressive over the Breeze Alrion reaction.
Yeah, but that is again because of her underlying insecurity, like because Alrion is everything that she isn't. So she's going to criticize everything that Alrion does and everything involving Alrion and condemn everything that Alrion does because of this insecurity.
This also does fill in very well with the Vin-Zane relationship because I highly doubt Zane is someone who understands empathy. Yeah. And given that Vin's whole thing is I'm trying to protect the ones that I love, someone who doesn't understand empathy, like Zane probably doesn't, is still struggling to conceive that someone can care for people outside of themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And Vin's circle is very small in terms of who she cares about. So she hasn't had to practice empathy beyond, the essentials. This is now Alrion. She doesn't necessarily have to, practice just being nice, even. So this is a new avenue for her to explore. She needs to go forth.
And Alrion is a wonderfully vapid test case or test subject.
Yeah.
I don't mean vapid here as a pejorative, but
exactly.
Well, Vin says it well enough in just a few moments, so I'll let her say it instead of me. Vin shrugged as they reached the shop.
I have trouble feeling sympathy for a courtly puff who is tragically taken from her dresses.
Tindell frowned slightly as they entered the shop, Orsur settling down to wait outside.
Do not be so hard on the child. She is a product of her upbringing, just as you are. If you judge her worth based on frivolities, then you are doing the same as those who judge you based on your simple clothing. I like it when people judge me based on my simple clothing. Then they don't expect too much.
I liked that verbal joust because Tindell is right, but I doubt Tindell expected that kind of reaction from Vin.
Yeah, Vin, but also it also gives us insight because part of Vin's avoidance of certain things is because that means there's going to be expectations attached. and I'm unworthy, and I'm not going to live up to everybody's expectations. So why even bother? So that's part of that mechanism we're seeing just from that response. She's like, oh, well, they don't expect too much from me if I dress a certain way. So yes, that of course points to the way that she uses her small size, and she wants people to underestimate her for sure. But
Yeah,
there's
that's
also
what I was
that,
thinking.
yeah, but there's also the other side of that where nobody expects me to do anything, so therefore I can't fail. That insecurity is underneath all of that.
Gotcha.
I'm projecting a little, but it's it's
Yeah,
that is it. It's like, yeah, if I keep everybody's expectations low, then I can't fail. Everybody.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was leaning more into I want people to underestimate me so that I can come out on top when necessary, more so than the other part. Because I think her fear of failure with regard to Ellen possibly dying or her friends coming to harm, I think lives in a different part of her than is connected to the way she dresses, personally. I'm saying I disagree with you.
Yeah, yeah, you can disagree, but I think just it's all actually part and parcel of her. She's using it as a defense mechanism. So her talking about it that way lets her just lampshade it and say it's not important to me that in the other way. She leans into that because that's a safer place to be than looking at herself. So
Gotcha.
I agreed and disagreed at the same time.
Well, as usual, I'll just defer to you.
Yes. She wants Tindell to think of that. And she herself wants, I'm trying to articulate, maybe I'll hopefully, when I hear this, I'll try and make sense of it more. But she wants Tindell to hear what you're talking about, where, I want people to not overestimate me, to underestimate me. Sorry, I want people to underestimate me because then I have the element of surprise. She wants Tindell to see that, but Tindell, in her response, she sees the other side of it because she sees the emotional side. Because that's what she's looking at with Vin at this point. I see. Then you haven't missed this at all.
She nodded toward the shop's inner room. Vin looked. The room was bursting with colors and fabric, lace and velvet, bodices and skirts. Everything was powdered with a light perfume. Standing before the dressing dummies in their brilliant hues, Vin was momentarily taken back to the balls, back to when she was Valette, back to when she had an excuse to be Valette.
They say you enjoyed noble society,
Tindell said, lightly walking forward. Now, admittedly, when I read that, I was like, who said that? But that is revealed, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Alrion was already standing near the front of the room, running her fingers across a bolt of fabric, talking to the dressmaker in a firm voice.
Who told you that? Why, your friends, my dear. It's quite curious. They say you stopped wearing dresses a few months after the collapse. They all wonder why. They say you seem to like dressing like a woman, but I guess they were wrong. No, they were right.
Tindell raised an eyebrow, pausing beside a dressmaker's dummy in a bright green gown, edged with lace, the bottom flaring wide with several underskirts. Vin approached, looking up at the gorgeous outfit.
Sorry, what's interesting in my book is that it's Vin looked up at the gorgeous costume. So
interesting. I think we've discussed the difference between outfit and costume in a past episode as well.
Yeah, so it's interesting that they've made that choice.
Yeah. Vin approached, looking up at the gorgeous outfit.
I was beginning to like dressing like this. That was the problem. I don't see the problem in that, dear.
Vin turned away from the gown.
This isn't me. It never was. It was just an act. When wearing a dress like that, it's too easy to forget who you really are.
She's opening up.
Yeah, but that's what she's opening up, and I love what Tindell does with what she's saying. It's not just her getting to say all her usual insecure thoughts and whatever. Now Tindell gets to give her new thoughts to have, new questions, new possibilities, a different way of seeing herself. And these dresses can't be part of who you really are?
Vin shook her head.
Dresses and gowns are part of who she is.
She nodded toward Alrion.
I need to be something else, something harder. I shouldn't have come here.
Tindell laid a hand on Vin's shoulder. But Vin doesn't like to be touched. Go on.
But Tindell's being gentle.
Hey.
Why haven't you married him, child?
Vin looked up sharply.
What kind of Christian is that? An honest one.
Tindell said. She seemed far less harsh than she had been the other times Vin had met her. Of course, during those times, she had mostly been addressing Elend.
That topic is not your concern. The king has asked me to help him improve his image, and I've taken it upon myself to do more than that. I want to make a real king of him, if I can. There is some great potential in him, I think. However, he's not going to be able to realize it until he's more sure about certain things in his life. You, in particular.
Great line. I think she's genuine here.
And look, you know what? I understand that the question seems to come out of nowhere, but Tindell has been watching Vin. She's trying to figure out what's going on with Vin, and how else do you do that but by asking big questions like that?
Yeah.
And also Vin is actually quite direct, so she's not. It's actually good that Tindell doesn't dance around the question. She just asks it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Vin closed her eyes, remembering his marriage proposal. That night on the balcony, ash lightly falling in the darkness. She remembered her terror. Of course, she'd known where the relationship was going. Why had she been so frightened? That was the day she'd stopped wearing dresses. Aw.
Mm-hmm. And we have a bit more of a, what happened for this marriage proposal. Like I want a proper POV of it, like a flashback. but we have that, and she was afraid. See, if I accept his love, then I have to live up to his love, and then I have to be something softer and more vulnerable and whatever. So Vin is terrified of all of those things, and also, of course, of getting hurt.
That was the day she'd stopped wearing dresses.
What do you think about that, Dorkus?
I think it was to signal to Elend, subtly, that she's not the kind of woman that she thinks he needs or wants.
Mm-hmm.
And because she's afraid to be that kind of woman.
Yeah. If she accepts that part of herself, that's not real. That's not her being real. That's not being a real Vin, and she's afraid of what all of that entails, so let's just run away from it, which makes sense. That's how her psyche works. Retreat! Avoid! He shouldn't have asked me.
Vin said, quietly opening her eyes.
He can't marry me. He loves you, child. In a way, that is unfortunate. This would all be much easier if he could feel otherwise. However, as things stand...
Vin shook her head.
I'm wrong for him. Ah, I see. He needs something else. Something better. A woman who can be a queen, not just a bodyguard. Someone...
Vin's stomach twisted.
Someone more like her.
Tindell glanced at Alrion, who laughed at a comment made by the elderly dressmaker as he took her measurements.
You are the one he fell in love with, child, when I was pretending to be like her.
Tindell smiled.
Somehow, I doubt that you could be like Ariane, no matter how hard you practiced. Perhaps. Either way, it was my courtly performance that he loved. He didn't know what I really was. And he has abandoned you now that he does know of it? Well, no, but old people are more complex than they first appear. Ariane, for instance, is eager and young, perhaps a bit too outspoken, but she knows more of the courts than many would expect, and she seems to know how to recognize what is good in a person. That is a talent many lack.
And at that point, I'm thinking, okay, if she has Tindell's stamp of approval, there's no way that she's spying for Seth.
Well, you're saying so for Ariane, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tindell's a lot sharper than most people, so if she's fooled by a spy, then, we have no hope. So.
Yeah, and there's, no possibility that Alrion is a particularly good spy, if she were a spy. And just having that innate talent to recognize what is good in a person strikes me as being born of being oneself a good person.
Yeah, just genuinely a good person. She seeks that. And like we said, instinctually she does it.
I can almost taste all of the egg on my face if it turns out we're wrong about this.
Well, I'll be very upset. I feel like she could be a good spy if we let her go and use her talents for our purposes. I feel like she could do that, actually, because she's a good person. Because she's a good person, she can be disingenuous. Like if she's got the good right, if Breezy says go and do something, she'll be like, okay, let's do that. And she'll be brave and yeah.
And of course, with the Wicked movie coming out soon, I'm also getting Galinda vibes from her.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, although Galinda at least started more as a mean girl than not, but that's a whole. Anyway.
Your king is an humble scholar and tinker, but he has the will of a warrior. He is a man who has the nerve to fight, and I think, perhaps, you have yet to see the best of him. Zazuza, Breeze, is a cynical, mocking man, until he looks at young Aldrian. Then he softens, and one wonders how much of his harsh unconcern is an act.
Okay, so that line, I think you perhaps have yet to see the best of him. A couple of things. One, I'm wondering if she said that because she believes Elend has not yet reached his full potential, or if this is about Vin. She seems to forget that Vin was rescued by Elend. That moment when Vin was in prison strikes me as peak Elend at his best type of a moment, for me at least. Mm-hmm. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think she has seen what we could say is the best of Elend. I think it's a mixture of all of them because Tindell approves of Elend. She knows he's got improvements to make, but he is good enough. She believes that he has the right stuff for that. So that means something. The fact that she approves and thinks he has potential is in itself an achievement. And I think maybe the framing of this might be that Elend has challenges that are going to Elend's challenges are going to show make it possible for him to show himself in the best way possible. So it's not only that his potential hasn't been reached, but it's like the challenges that he has to face, he hasn't faced them yet. And when that does happen, you'll see the best of him.
Gotcha.
So that's what the sense I'm getting there. I feel her really approving of Elend here. Vin, on the other hand, I suppose, is focusing more on how unworthy she is of this Elend. Okay. Oh no, and how and it's unworthy because I'm not the right woman. But at the same time, she is right on him. She will cling to him and love him and carry on. But no. I'm wrong for him. And it's like, okay, so what are you here for then? Which now, of course, now you worry because then she's going to run after Zane. Or basically you were thinking she's going to dump Elend because she thinks she's not good enough for Elend, which I still think happens. I still understand the silly thinking behind it, but that's just the way her psyche is. Tindell
looked at Vin appraisingly.
Oh, sorry. One more thing. So the next thing is Tindell is using these two examples, okay, of people are not just what they seem, right? So she uses Elend. Now, then she goes to Breeze. Remember, we had Vin have the same realization of Breeze earlier on in the book, where she looked at Breeze and she realized Breeze was actually a good man. When she realized he was soothing Elend and making Elend feel better, that's when she smiled. She actually ended up smiling at Breeze because he was a good man. He appears to be cynical and whatever, but actually is a good man. So the fact that Tindell brings that up after Vin has had that thought makes it easier for Vin to listen to Tindell and say, oh, she was right about that because I was right about it before. So it works. Oh, the psychological stuff here is juicy.
Excellent. Yes. Tindell looked at Vin appraisingly.
And you are so much more than you're willing to accept, child. Why look at only one side of yourself when your Elend sees so much more? Is that what this is all about? You trying to turn me into a queen for Elend? No, child. I wish to upturn you into whoever you are. Now, go let the man take your measurements so you can try on some stock dresses. Whoever I am?
Vin thought, frowning. She let the tall terrace woman push her forward, and the elderly dressmaker took his tape and began to measure. A few moments in a changing room later, Vin stepped back into the room wearing a memory. Silky blue with white lace, the gown was tight at the waist and through the bust, but had a large flowing lower half. The numerous skirts made it flare out in a triangular shape, her feet completely covered, the hem of the skirt flushed with the floor. It was terribly impractical. It rustled when she moved, and she had to be careful where she stepped to keep it from catching or brushing a dirty surface. But it was beautiful, and it made her feel beautiful. She almost expected a band to start playing, Sazed to stand over her shoulder like a protective sentry, and Elend to appear in the distance, lounging and watching couples dance as he flipped through a book. But yay blue, but
No. No, it's a beautiful thing. She stepped into a memory. Oh, it's a really nice, good passage. She's completely transported. Like, she's already even thinking of Ellen with the book and all of that. She's gone back. And her brain is letting her think of herself as beautiful. Look at that, because she feels beautiful. Listen, wearing a pretty dress, I don't know, it does things to people. Try it.
I wouldn't know. Vin walked forward, letting the dressmaker see where the garment pinched and where it bunched, and Alrion let out an "ooh" as she saw Vin. The old dressmaker leaned on his cane, dictating notes to a young assistant. "Move around a bit more, my lady. Let me see how it fits when you do more than walk in a straight line." Vin spun slightly, turning on one foot, trying to remember the dancing moves Sazed had taught her.
I never did get to dance with Elend,
she realized, stepping to the side as if to music she could only faintly remember.
He always found an excuse to wiggle out of it.
She twirled, getting a feel for the dress. She would have thought that her instincts had decayed. Now that she had one on again, she was surprised at how easy it was to fall back into those habits, stepping lightly, turning so that the skirts flared up a bit. She looked up. The dressmaker was no longer dictating. He watched her quietly, smiling.
What?
Vin asked, flushing. "I'm sorry, my lady," he said, turning to tap on his assistant's notebook, sending the boy away with a point of his finger. "But I don't rightly think I've ever seen someone move so gracefully, like a passing breath."
You flatter me. No, child. He's right. You move with a grace that most women can only envy.
The dressmaker smiled again, turning as his assistant approached with a group of square cloth color samples. The old man began to sort through them with a wizened hand, and Vin stepped over to Tindell, holding her arms at her sides, trying not to let the traitorous dress take control of her again. I loved that line. It's so
cute.
Vin.
Yeah, it was cute, the traitorous dress. Damn dress, taking control of me. No, Vin, just enjoy it. Like, honestly, I was transported myself to when I tried on my wedding dress. It's the same feeling. I don't know if I think I mentioned it the first time Vin got in a dress as well. I walked around that store. I flounced around. I twirled and carried on whatever, and like a little girl, because there's just so I'm like emotional for Vin. Like, Vin, let that happen. Let yourself feel those things. It's okay. She's like, "Oh, I've got to be something harder. It's very impractical." Why are you being so nice to me?
Vin demanded quietly.
Why shouldn't I be? Because you're mean to Elend. Don't deny it. I've listened in on your lessons. You spent the time insulting and disparaging him, but now you're pretending to be nice.
Tindell smiled.
I'm not pretending, child. Then why are you so mean to Elend? The lad grew up as a pampered son of a great lord. Now that he is king, he needs a little harsh truth, I think. I sense that you've had quite enough of that in your life.
So, quick hot take here. I think Tindell is right to treat Elend as she does, but I don't think her reasoning is entirely right.
Ooh, agreed.
Because while we know that Elend grew up pampered, he was that rebellious personality. So he didn't necessarily have all of the pleasantries that someone like Jousting or Telden might have had. The reason I think Tindell's method is effective, though, is because Ellen does need to grow the hell up.
Yeah. It's the harshness was always properly tearing him down previously because of Straff, the way Straff is. Straff really believes that he is an idiot. Whereas Tindell being harsh is actually, she's being harsh on like, no, stop believing that you're useless. We're done with that. Start believing that you're more than what your father said you are. So it's different. It's a different kind of stern. It's a different kind of tough love that he never got. He only got tough. He didn't get love. He just got tough before. Now she's giving him tough love. And also the contrast, the contrast with how I love the way she said, for you've had enough of that. Like, and I love how childish Vin comes off, because it's like, well, you're mean to him, so you're a mean person. She doesn't understand. She's very so protective of Ellen that if you treat Ellen that way, you must just be an evil person, and I'm not going to let you be nice to me. You're not genuine at all. So I love that Tindell just puts her down at ease, like, listen, I'm for real here.
Yeah. And to sort of rephrase my point from earlier, it's not so much that he grew up pampered, it's that he developed his own quasi-rebellious teenage attitude that he has yet to grow out of, that Tindell's method is effective for.
Mm-hmm.
The dressmaker approached with his swatches, spreading them out on a low table. "Now, my lady," he said, tapping one group with a bent finger, "I think your coloring would look particularly good with dark cloth. A nice maroon, perhaps?"
What about black? Heavens, no. Absolutely no more black or grey for you, child. What about this one, then?
Vin asked, pulling out a royal blue swatch. It was nearly the shade she'd worn the first night she'd met Ellen so long ago. "Ah, yes. That would look wonderful against that light skin and dark hair. Yes. Now we'll have to pick a style. You need this by tomorrow, the terrace woman said?" Vin nodded. "Ah, then we'll need to modify one of the stock dresses, but I think I have one in this color. We'll have to take it in quite a bit, but we can work through the night for a beauty like yourself, can't we, lad? Now as for the style..."
This is fine, I guess,
Vin said, looking down. The gown was the standard cut of those she'd worn at previous balls. "Well, we're not looking for fine, now, are we?" the dressmaker said with a smile.
What if we remove some of the pettiskirts?
Petty skirts or petticoats do you have?
I've got pettiskirts.
Interesting, I have petticoats.
What if we remove some of the petticoats?
Tindell said, pulling at the sides of Vin's dress.
And perhaps raise the hem just a bit, so that she could move more freely. You could do that?
Of course. The lad says thinner skirts are more popular to the south, but they tend to lag in fashion a bit behind Luthadel. Though I don't know that Luthadel even really has a fashion anymore.
Make cuffs of the sleeves wide, and sew a couple of pockets into them for certain personal items.
I read that and I thought of the meme. "I like your dress. Thanks, it has pockets."
But you know what I love about this is integrating who Vin is with the bits of Villette that she liked. It's bringing them together. She can be Mistborn in a dress because she has the pockets for her daggers and for her vials and for her whatevers. So
yeah,
Tindell is showing her a different way for her to be herself, whoever she is, which Vin is struggling with. Who am I, kind of thing, and I'm not worthy, and whatever. The bits of herself that she wants to keep and the bits of herself she wants to put away. Tindell is showing her a different way. She can embrace her femininity, like dresses and all of that, but also use her power to change fashion, to her agency that she now has to change the way she dresses, the way her dress is even constructed. It's a powerful thing. In The Wheel of Time, one of the girls is also quite a tomboy, and she falls in love with the protagonist, she is upset with the fact that she wants to be more girly for him. So one of the things that she does start doing, she has worn a dress, good, beautiful and whatever, but one of the things she does is she still wears trousers and jackets and things, but they're very beautifully embroidered. So that's how she evolves. She doesn't stay in the drab clothing, but she doesn't change all the way into a girly girl either. So I saw the parallels here. It works. Tomboys be tomboying when it comes to, just modify your clothing. I don't know. I know I've spoken a lot in this episode, but it really is. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm female that it really resonates with me. Just the way that Tindell's approaching her, embracing beauty. Oh, I'm a bit emotional.
Aw. And it reminds me of Ellen's thought that he should be able to set the trends now. I suspect that Vin is going to be setting some trends now.
Trendsetter! Yeah, exactly. And hey, look, there is another thing. Ellen also had to change what he's wearing, and what he wore had an effect on him. This is what happens. You see, they're also putting different costumes on and embracing different parts of themselves.
Indeed. The old man nodded as his quiet assistant scribbled down the suggestion.
The chest and waist can be tight, but not restrictive. Lady Vin needs to be able to move freely.
The old man halted. Lady Vin? He asked. He looked a little closer at Vin, squinting, then turned to his assistant. The boy nodded quietly. I see, the man said, paling, hand shaking a little more. He placed it on the top of his cane as if to give himself a little more stability. I'm sorry if I offended you, my lady. I didn't know. Vin flushed again.
Another reason why I shouldn't go shopping. No, it's all right. You haven't offended me.
He relaxed slightly, and Vin noticed Spook strolling over. Looks like we've been found, Spook said, nodding to the front windows. Vin glanced past dressing dummies and bales of cloth to see a crowd gathering outside. Tindell watched Vin with curiosity. Spook shook his head. Why do you get to be so popular?
I killed their god,
Vin said quietly, ducking around a dressing dummy, hiding from the dozens of peeking eyes. I helped too. I even got my nickname from Kelsier himself. But nobody cares about poor little Spook. So, that's a bit much, Spook. And perhaps now's not the best time. But it's true, he did help. And that does speak to what I had said in an earlier chapter about Spook's thing being no one sees me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he sees everything, but nobody sees him. It makes sense. It was a little bit, okay, Spook, now you need to grow up, son.
Yeah.
That's not how this works. Well, it is how it works, but get over it.
Exactly. Yeah, still not seeing creepy Spook. I'm annoyed by juvenile Spook, but
yes.
Still a little ways to go before creepy, I think.
Yeah.
Vin scanned the room for windows.
There's got to be a back door. Of course, there might be people in the alley. What are you doing? I have to go. Get away from them. Why don't you go out and talk to them? They're obviously very interested in seeing you.
Alrion emerged from a dressing room wearing a gown of yellow and blue and twirled dramatically. She was obviously put out when she didn't even get Spook's attention. That was very comedic.
That's very cute. She's like, ta-da! And nobody does anything. I'm not going out there. Why would I want to do something like that? They need hope. Hope you can give them. A false hope. I'd only encourage them to think of me as some object of worship. That's not true,
Alrion said suddenly, walking forward, looking out the windows without the least embarrassment.
Hiding in corners, wearing strange clothing, being mysterious. That's what's gotten you this amazing reputation. If people knew how ordinary you were, they wouldn't be so crazy to get a look at you.
She paused, then looked back.
I didn't mean that like I think it sounded.
So funny.
Like she's just brutally honest, she's just beautifully honest. She's not trying to be mean. I think that's what makes her stand out. She's not a mean girl. She's just being honest, and she's not trying to bring Vin down. She realizes that might be a insulting thing. So she's actually got empathy as well.
Yeah. And again, with the Galinda vibes, Vin flushed.
I'm not Kelsia, Tindell. I don't want people to worship me. I just want to be left alone. Some people don't have that choice, child. You struck down the Lord Ruler. You were trained by the survivor. And you are the king's consort. I'm not his consort. We're just... Lord, even I don't understand our relationship. How am I supposed to explain it?
Tindell raised an eyebrow.
All right.
Vin said, sighing and walking forward.
I'll go with you.
Alrion said, grabbing Vin's arm as if they'd been friends since childhood. Vin resisted but couldn't figure a way to pry her off without making a scene. They stepped out of the shop. The crowd was already large, and the periphery was filling as more and more people came to investigate. Most were scaw in brown ash-stained work coats or simple gray dresses. The ones in the front backed away as Vin stepped out, giving her a little ring of empty space, and a murmur of odd excitement moved through the crowd.
Wow, there sure are a lot of them.
Vin nodded. Orsor sat where he had before, near the door, and he watched her with a curious canine expression. Orion smiled at the crowd, waving with a sudden hesitance.
You can, fight them off or something if this turns messy, right? That won't be necessary.
Vin said, finally slipping her arm free of Orion's grasp and giving the crowd a bit of a soothing to calm them. She stepped forward, trying to push down her sense of itching nervousness. She'd grown to no longer feel she needed to hide when she went out in public, but standing before a crowd like this, while she almost turned and slinked back into the dressmaker's shop, a voice stopped her. The speaker was a middle-aged man with an ash-stained beard and a dirty black cap held nervously in his hands. He was a strong man, probably a mill worker. His quiet voice seemed a contrast to his powerful build. Lady Eyre, what will become of us? The terror, the uncertainty in the large man's voice was so piteous that Vin hesitated. He regarded her with hopeful eyes, as did most of the others.
So many. I thought the Church of the Survivor was small.
She looked at the man who stood wringing his cap. She opened her mouth, but then couldn't do it. She couldn't tell him that she didn't know what would happen. She couldn't explain to those eyes that she wasn't the savior that he needed.
Everything will be all right.
Vin heard herself say, increasing her soothing, trying to take away some of their fear.
But the armies, Lady Eyre,
one of the women said.
They're trying to intimidate us, but the king won't let them. Our walls are strong, as are our soldiers. We can outlast this siege.
The crowd was silent.
One of those armies is led by Ellen's father, Straff Venture. Ellen and I are going to go meet with Straff tomorrow. We will persuade him to be our ally.
That right there, I'm like, okay.
Oopsie.
First off,
yeah.
You say that right in front of Alrion, who you think is a spy. Next, you say that out in broad daylight where anyone can hear. I don't know how secret this plan of yours is. Maybe just the assembly knows. Maybe everyone... Be very careful with what you say, Vin. I know you're stressed. I feel for you. I do, but don't go revealing state secrets yet.
Yeah, this is quite a thing. Look, okay, Church of the Survivor, but word spreads, okay? This, I feel like, do you feel like this is going to come back to bite us?
A little bit, yeah. If I recall correctly, I think she says a couple of things that I'm like, maybe don't.
Yeah, like, to just reassure them. Don't tell them the plan.
Or half of it.
We will persuade him to be our ally.
The king is going to surrender. I heard it. He's going to trade the city for his life.
No, he would never do that.
He won't fight for us. He's no soldier. He's a politician. Other voices called out in agreement. Reverence disappeared as people began to yell out concerns, while others began to demand help. The dissidents continued to rail against Elend, yelling that there was no way he could protect them. Vin raised her hands to her ears, trying to ward off the crowd, the chaos.
Stop!
She yelled, pushing out with steel and brass. Several people stumbled back away from her, and she could see a wave in the crowd as buttons, coins, and buckles suddenly pressed backward. The people grew suddenly quiet. Now, important to note, I understand the fear, but none of this fear was directed at the assembly. It was all directed at Elend.
Yes. What do you
Which
think of
makes
that?
I think it makes some degree of sense. If you're going to be the figurehead, you're going to be the one that gets blamed regardless. But damn it, it's so hard to hear, knowing how Elend is essentially the only one that's fighting for him.
Yeah, actually. The assembly is just like, nah, this is cool. Let's just give it over. Do you think it's also some sort of residual effect of having always had this one figurehead ruler? So it doesn't really make sense. They don't really understand too much about what the assembly is about. So they're just prone to blaming the leader. Both the structure and the history lends itself to blame the king. If you're a king and you're not acting like a king either, yeah, you. If you're a king, we actually have learned this. Elend will be blamed for everything anyway. So here it is, writ large. He's being blamed for it.
Yeah.
Did a little show of power there.
Yeah.
Rules. Imagine if it was a Duralumin thing. Everyone will just go flying.
The people grew suddenly quiet.
I will suffer no ill words spoken of our king,
Vin said, flaring her brass and increasing her soothing.
He is a good man and a good leader. He has sacrificed much for you. Your freedom comes because of his long hours spent drafting laws, and your livelihoods come because of his work, securing trade routes and agreements with merchants.
Many members of the crowd looked down. The bearded man at the front continued to twist his cap, looking at Vin. They're just frightened, Lady Air. Right frightened.
We'll protect you. What am I saying? Elend and I will find a way. We stop the Lord Ruler, we can stop these armies.
She trailed off, feeling foolish, yet the crowd responded. Some were obviously still unsatisfied, but many seemed calmed. The crowd began to break up, though some of its members came forward, leading or carrying small children. Vin paused nervously. Halcyon had often met with and held the children of the Ska, as if giving them his blessing. She bade the group a hasty farewell and ducked back into the shop, pulling Alrion after her. Tindell waited inside, nodding with satisfaction.
I lied. No, you didn't. You were optimistic. The truth or fiction of what you said has yet to be proven. It won't happen. Elend can't defeat 3 armies, not even with my help.
Tindell raised an eyebrow.
Then you should leave. Run away. Leave the people to deal with the armies themselves. I didn't mean that. Well, make a decision then. Either give up on the city or believe in it. Honestly, the pair of you.
That was such a funny line of dialogue.
It's, you know what, that's great. That's so you see, this is Tindell. Yes, she's being nice. She was being nice, but when it is necessary, she will be firm with you. When you are being full of marshmallows, yeah, when you're full of angst, there you go. If you're being too soft, she's going to be like, okay, are you done? Are you done now? Kind of thing. Like, I like that. And here we go. Vin goes.
She shook her head.
I thought you weren't going to be harsh with me. I have trouble with that sometimes. Come, Alrion, let's finish your fitting.
I'm so glad that Alrion gets to finish her fitting, and that it was Tindell that remembered.
Yeah. Oh, shut. She just needed a good girly time. Oh.
They moved to do so. At that moment, as if to belie Vin's assurances of safety, several warning drums began to beat atop the city wall. Vin froze, glancing through the window out over the anxious crowd. One of the armies was attacking. Cursing the delay, she rushed into the back of the shop to change out of the bulky dress.
I did not see that coming. Were you like, oh?
Yeah, this chapter was going too well for there not to be a mini cliffhanger.
Okay. I thought that I didn't know. I didn't think we were going to have cliffhanger. I thought we were just going to quietly end the chapter and go, and then something crap will happen afterwards. Not in this chapter. So very well done. Great pacing. We've had lots of character work, and then it's like, oh, by the way, here's some crazy stuff happening. You are still at war.
Yeah, as an episode, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not done yet. We do get to hear what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Set was attacking, but that's, well, We'll get to it. Ellen scrambled up the steps to the city wall, nearly tripping on his dueling cane in his haste. He stumbled out of the stairwell, moving onto the wall top, rearranging the cane at his side with a curse. The wall was in chaos. Men scrambled about, calling to each other. Some had forgotten their armor, others their bows. So many tried to get up after Elend that the stairwell got clogged, and he watched hopelessly as men crowded around the openings below, creating an even larger jam of bodies in the courtyard. So already you can tell this is not going well for them, and I found myself a little aggravated by that. I would have hoped that they could handle a skirmish like this without too much nerves.
Yeah, what have they been preparing for? Like, what have they been doing? That's
Precisely.
frustrating. Yeah, like, no, I agree with you. I'm like, I expected better.
Ellen spun, watching a large group of Straff's men, thousands of them, rush toward the wall. So, again, I had expected that this was an attack from Set, not Straff. So when I saw Straff, I was like, wait, did Set dress up his soldiers as Straff to try and pull some shenanigans? By the end of the chapter, I don't think that's the case. But that did also get me thinking, not to go on too far of a tangent, and I do have to keep in mind we are taking this one chapter at a time, but we're almost halfway through this book, and I will say I'm a little disappointed that we don't have more politicking quite yet. There's a lot of reference to politicking, but we don't get very much of it right up front. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think it's because the characters take the center of it. We're working on the characters. And
where would there be time? Where could you even fit it in? All the same.
And there's other mysteries we have that have taken up space as well. So the politicking is happening. If we spent more time in Ellen's POV, we would get that. I understand, but we've got other characters to work on. So I'm not that disappointed in it, but I understand that you want more complex politicking occurring rather than just this repeated shallow stuff of, we will make them both our allies, blah 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 blah. That's as intriguing. But I mean, I've enjoyed some of the I think the theorizing has been more intriguing than anything that's actually happened. I think you're right with that.
Yeah. Ellen stood near Tindgate at the north of the city nearest Straff's army. He could see a separate group of soldiers rushing toward Pewtergate, a little to the east.
Archers! Men, where are your bows?
His voice was lost in the shouting. Captains moved about trying to organize the men, but apparently too many foot soldiers had come to the wall, leaving a lot of the archers trapped in the courtyard below. Why? Ellen thought, desperately turning back toward the charging army. Why is he attacking? We had an agreement to meet. Had he perhaps gotten wind of Ellen's plan to play both sides of the conflict? Perhaps there really was a spy in the inner crew. Either way, Ellen could only watch hopelessly as the army approached his wall. One captain managed to get off a pathetic volley of arrows, but it didn't do much good. As the army approached, arrows began to zip up toward the wall, mixed with flying coins. Straff had allomancers in the group. So, action scene.
Yeah, action scene where we had dresses, now we have bullets, basically.
Yeah. And I would say that this is all filtered through Ellen's POV, so they could maybe be doing better than he thinks they are, but Clubs comes in at some point and kind of disavows us of that hope.
Yeah. And I mean, I understand thousands are coming towards you and you're just not expecting this attack at all. I suppose you should be expecting it, just that's your job. But at the same time, when it really is happening, I can understand their descent into chaos. Like, I was harsh on them, but I expected better, but I understand it's freaking scary. Just imagine thousands just suddenly making their way to the walls. And then there's allomancers and whatever. So I don't think Ellen has allomancers coin shots all over the place either. So yeah,
at least
this
not
is dire.
enough. Ellen cursed, ducking down below a merlin as coins bounced against the stonework. A few soldiers fell. Ellen's soldiers, killed because he'd been too proud to surrender the city. I appreciate that you value life, Ellen,
Yeah. But remember Tindell. It's like, okay, or you make a decision, okay? You said you're staying with it, so stick with it.
And they knew what they were getting into.
Yeah.
They know that some things are worth dying for, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they should.
He peeked carefully over the wall. A group of men carrying a battering ram were approaching, their bodies carefully protected by men with shields. The care probably meant that the rammers were thugs, a suspicion confirmed by the sound the ram made when it smashed into the gate. That was not the blow of ordinary men. Hooks followed next, pushed up toward the wall by coin shots below, falling far more accurately than if they'd been thrown. Soldiers moved to pull them off, but coins shot upward, taking the men almost as quickly as they made the attempt. The gate continued to thump beneath him, and he doubted it would last for long. I really like allomantic battles, like not one-on-ones with Mistborn. I like allomancers in war tactics.
Yeah. They're like the archers, just deadly. They can focus exactly where their coins are going.
Yeah.
Even more so. And there's no one there deflecting it. There's no shields, there's nothing.
Yup. And so we fall, with barely a hint of resistance. You're very quick to presume fall after one battle, but sure.
I mean, lots of people are dying. But again, this is Ellen. He hasn't seen such things, eh?
True. And they are doing fairly badly, so...
There are, yeah. So it's like... And you have that realization. You're like, well, we're doing horribly. It's over.
And there was nothing he could do. He felt impotent, forced to keep ducking down lest his white uniform make him a target. All his politicking, all his preparations, all his dreams and his plans gone. And then Vin was there. I loved that, of course. But also I'm kind of glad that Vin does what she does here. Mm-hmm. She landed atop the wall, breathing hard amid a group of wounded men. Coins and arrows that came near to her deflected back out into the air. Men rallied around her, moving to remove hooks and pull the wounded to safety. Her knives cut ropes, dropping them back down below. She met Ellen's eyes, looking determined, then moved as if to leap over the side of the wall and confront the thugs with their battering rams. Ellen raised a hand, but someone else spoke.
Vin, wait!
Clubs bellowed, bursting out of the stairwell. She paused. Ellen had never heard such a forceful command from the gnarled general. Arrows stopped flying. The booming calmed. Ellen stood hesitantly, watching with a frown as the army retreated back across the ash-strewn fields toward their camp. They left a couple of corpses behind. Ellen's men had managed to hit a few with their arrows. His own army had taken far heavier casualties. Some 24 men appeared to be wounded. Well, hey, at least they got a few, but yeah, no, this was not worth it. What? Ellen asked, turning to Clubs.
They weren't putting up scaling ladders, Clubs said, eyeing the retreating forces. This wasn't an actual attack.
What was it then?
Vin asked, frowning.
A test. It's common in warfare. A quick skirmish to see how your enemy responds, to feel out their tactics and preparations.
I feel like that sentence was put in there just to spite me personally and how I fix Clubs.
Thanks, Anderson. You knew.
Ellen turned, watching the disorganized soldiers make way for healers to care for the wounded. A test. My guess is that we didn't do very well. Clubs shrugged.
Far worse than we should have. Maybe this will scare the lads into paying better attention during drills.
He paused, and Ellen could see something he wasn't expressing. Worry. Ellen glanced out over the wall, watching the retreating army. Suddenly it made sense. It was exactly the kind of move that his father liked to make. The meeting with Straff would take place as planned. Before it happened, Straff wanted Ellen to know something. I can take this city any time, the attack seemed to say. It's mine, no matter what you do. Remember that.
Well, epic ending to the chapter.
I would have said depressing, but yes, epic. Well written.
Yeah. Well written, exciting, scary. It's ramped up. Now the politicking does happen with the action surrounding it, Dorkus.
Yeah. Things are going to change. Ellen's going to have more pressure to meet with Straff sooner, although they already set that, at least tomorrow. The first date that Ellen's trying to pretend isn't a parlay.
Yeah, how's that going to work out? But Yeah, I agree with this. Agree. I can see that this is what Straff's actions are saying. Saying, yeah, I could do this if I want. To just a show of power before the negotiations, just to kind of bring him there on the back foot. But he's got to not bow to it. How do you think Elend is going to react to this? How's he going to...
Clearly, he's reacting with despair so far.
So far, but I'm saying, like, how do you think this is going to make him approach the meeting? Do you think he's going to man up?
Well, I think I'm going to hold to my earlier prediction. I think his meeting with Straff is going to go well for Elend. And then I think he's going to take a stumble in dealing with the assembly. So even regardless of this scare tactic, I still think Elend will ultimately come out on top in this first meeting.
I'm feeling that too. I am also. The only thing that I just want to recall is my prediction that, and you agreed with this at the time, if I remember correctly, that Elend will be feeling insecure in the moment and almost lose it in the moment, but he's going to ultimately come out on top. Better.
I think so.
Yeah. I hope so. Go Elend.
Poor Elend.
Yeah.
And he's doing so well of late.
You can do it, Elend.
I believe in you.
And Vin is so cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was quite a long chapisode, I think. But I think we also got some pretty neat conversation. I enjoyed it. I adored this chapter, as I said at the start. And I'm looking to see what happens next.
Elrian, not spy.
Yes, add that to the prediction log.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay, thanks, bye. Yeah, do that part.
Okay, thanks, bye. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye.